Good morning, my stitchy friends. I'm back with a Stitch with Me. It's a great pleasure to be able to sit down and spend time with you again. I'm going to be working on this glorious chart called Happy Village by Irena Orlov. I managed to remember that just off the top of my head. And it's a heaven and earth design, which I started back in not that long ago, January. That would be January of this year. And I did a video showing this one, which I uploaded a day or two ago. And I said in that video that I would come back and do a Stitch with Me. So here I am. And I'm more or less settled at my desk today, not on the couch. I'm at my desk. It's a little bit fiddly. Lighting isn't fantastic. I have to do a few edits at the end. But we'll see how it goes. I'm here and I'm ready to go. And I hope it's going to be easy stitching today because of the fact that I'm starting a new diagonal up here. So it's going to be easy because, well, if you look at the area that I'm working in, I've got nothing but blue and black, really. That's just about it. So I'm really going to take it easy today. I know that I try really hard to do lots of chatting and lots of talking to you. I know many of you like listening whilst you're stitching. I am a little bit on the tired side, so to speak. I'm going to start with this DMC 823 now. This is a gorgeous dark blue that I'm going to start stitching this with. Yeah, so I didn't get too much sleep last night. I'm tired, all things considered, but I still wanted to come on and spend a bit of time with you. I feel a bit nasally today, so I apologize if my voice is a bit croaky or a little bit hoarse or a little bit strange. I still feel like I haven't recovered from the cold that I had a couple of weeks ago, which is very frustrating because they say that colds take a certain amount of days, but it's never days, it all runs into weeks. And then you wake up and you feel better and you think, oh, it's gone. And then the next morning you feel the same. So I don't think it's ever really gone for about 3 months, especially at this time of year. So yeah, a little bit nasally. My sinuses are not very good, to be honest. So I've got my coffee and I'm just going to take it easy. So I apologize if the video is not interesting or it's rubbish. I do apologize. I'll try my best. So I did want to anyway talk a little bit about the method that I'm doing here, because some people ask me to explain, and sometimes I think, well, it's easy for me to just assume that everybody knows how to do a certain method or how to do most of them, because there's so many videos out there explaining these methods. And I know that I've learned from many other floss tubers and very well-known ones as well. And for that reason, I just assume that most people, because I've been doing it for a while, I assume that most people kind of know the different methods, even if they haven't sort of tried them all. They kind of got an idea how to do them, but it's not exactly true, because there's always going to be new viewers and people who stumble across videos and think, oh, that looks really interesting. What is she doing there? So they get into the video and then they kind of want to know. And I do get messages like, how did you do this? And how did you do that? And I think, well, I didn't even really explain it in my video because I wasn't aiming to do an explanation video. I was just sort of, you know, chit-chatting as if you were in like a crafting session or something and sitting around a table with friends. So I didn't really, often don't feel that it's an explanatory video, let's say, that I'm doing. However, I'll just talk a little bit about what I'm doing here for those of you who are genuinely interested or don't know much about diagonals. So the diagonals, I don't know when they actually ever started, probably quite a long time ago, I'd say, long before I even came into floss tube. And I watched a few videos here and there. I mentioned in the last few videos that I watched videos by Brian Blitzstitch, by Needlebug. I think there's a few more. Thread the Needle. There's other ones as well. Teresa Little Stitcher probably has done some. I know she does some sort of block stitching. Yeah, there's many, and if I've left any out, please forgive me. So I've gone back and learned and done a few videos, and it took me a while to get into it, to be honest, because I found it quite difficult to count at this edge. I was always like one stitch over or one stitch under. And really, you know, how hard can it be? You're counting 10 stitches across every time. Right? Sorry, no, I'm wrong there. So you go 10 stitches across, and then you go down and diagonally, so it's another 10, and you go down diagonally. So you're always still doing 10 stitches, except you're doing them as a, what do they call it, parallelogram. I don't really, my brain's not very good with doing things sideways or curves. I was always doing just the blocks. But I got tired of the blocks, and I thought, well, I want to try something different. So I started doing the diagonals. However, I quickly got into trouble because I was getting lost at the edge. I would go one over, and then I would do 11 stitches, and it would just mess everything up completely. So it took me a while to actually like it, or find a way to do it that I actually liked. And to cut a long story short, after all the experimenting and everything that I do with diagonals, or that I did, I actually found that going row by row was always going to be the easiest for me. It's going to be the slowest, no question, because unless you're doing cross country, you're going to be slow. But I don't think slow or a little bit slower is necessarily a bad thing. It's more about what you're enjoying at that moment in time. So I try to look at it as a toss-up between, am I enjoying what I'm doing, or do I really want to get to the end really quickly? And most of the time, my answer is always going to be, I have to be enjoying what I'm actually doing. So there's the answer. The answer is in the bag. Just do the method that you enjoy. However, there's always a however, isn't there? Sometimes I do get tired of it, and I know other people do as well. And I like to chop and change just to make it interesting, to make my actual stitching life interesting. But I like diagonals now because I'll tell you what I like about them. They're neat and tidy. And I used to enjoy doing a little bit of cross country from time to time, but the more cross country I would go, and the more gaps there were all over the canvas, the more anxious I would get, or stressed or something. I don't know. I would just feel like, oh my God, there's just too much going on. It looks like when you've dropped something on the floor and everything's scattered across the room, like a bag of Lego bricks or something. And that used to make me terribly anxious. Like, I don't know where to go. There's too much, and it's difficult to do a sort of, you know, carry your threads. So much carrying your thread behind is incredible amount of carrying that's sometimes unavoidable. So it's not my preferred method for sure. It is for many. And so I always seem to revert to doing either blocks or diagonals. That seems to be my thing. And I don't want to get into knots today. Come on, please don't get into knots. This isn't going to be fun if we get into a knotty session. I still feel something back there. Sometimes if you just pull the thread a little bit behind, you can even out a tiny knot. Like, it's not really a knot, it's just that it's got twisted together. So if you're watching, you can see that I'm just snaking, and at the moment I'm just snaking on the same colour, which is the 823, is it? Oh no, 310. I'm snaking with the 310 right now. And the interesting thing about what I'm doing is that I'm only going up a hole that's clean. I don't want to come up a hole that has a stitch in it. So for that reason, I'm going to not do this next stitch here because there's no stitch above it. Basically, that's it. If I try to explain that in too many different ways, I confuse myself and I start confusing other people. So just go with that. I like to go up at the moment with a inner stitch that is clean. I don't want to come up a stitch that is not clean. By that I mean that hasn't got a stitch already going down in it. So I'll stop there and then I'll go back and do this one. And you're probably thinking, well, why do you do that? It's just like, wouldn't it be just so much easier just to do all of the one color and then go back and do all of the other color? Yeah, it would be easier to do that for sure. But I kind of like the way I'm doing it at the moment, because I feel like after so many, months of stitching 10 stitch, I've noticed that my stitches are much neater if I always come down. If I always come up a clean hole. If I start coming up all over the place in holes that are not clean, my needle doesn't get the nice, break through that hole that it should. It kind of has to twist the other thread a little bit, one way or the other way. As you can see now, this is kind of nice because I've only got to fill in these 2 stitches are vacant. And there's nothing below them, because sometimes I've pushed my needle through and it's pulled up some of the thread from the stitch below it, or a little bit of fluff or something. Then I have to get my little tool and push that bit of fluff back to the back. But at the moment, there isn't going to be any fluff coming up because my holes are always clean. So it does take a bit longer to do it this way. However, I just explained a few minutes ago, you have to decide what stitching method you want to do compared to the amount of time it's going to take you to do it. And that's always a personal choice. So I hope that's sufficiently explained. We're coming up this way. So I try not to rush. Some days I feel like I'm automatically trying to do things in a bit of a rush. I don't know why that is, but because I generally prefer to be slowing down. So I'm going to park just below here because there's no stitch up at the end on that last row that I can go down in. And I go back to this one. See, if I didn't thread my needle so quickly, it wouldn't be good. If I took forever to thread my needle, I do not think I would be stitching like this. But because, as you can see, it only takes me less than a couple of seconds, there is no distress or delay or anything about threading needles. At the moment, I'm going particularly slower because, in case you're watching and keeping track of what I'm doing. So I don't want to kind of rush on. So for the whole, let's see, 1, 2, for the next 200 stitches at least, we are just working black and navy blue, which is fine. Now I've actually reached the end of the second page here. It's actually gone a little bit over the page, but because I'm doing diagonal, I'd rather just go to the end of the diagonal. And yeah, I've reached the end of the second page. So my thoughts now, because I'm using this nudge hoop, my thoughts are to finish 4 pages and then do another 4 pages below. That is sort of the tentative plan. Let's see. Now I can do this whole, I can carry on with this whole row now because I'm going down, coming up in a clean hole and going down what they call a used hole or an occupied hole, one that has a stitch in it already, basically. So I'm finding this is so much neater because you can actually make gaps by, you know, coming up. Like it's there's so many facts involved. It's to do with tension, it's to do with direction, it's to do with the kind of quality of thread. There's a lot of things which contribute to whether, you know, how neat that those stitches are going to look. But I do find, having done it for a while, they are so very uniform and neat because of the fact that I'm putting in that extra effort to do what I'm doing here, which is being consistent and careful. Because sometimes if you're not careful, you will come up not quite right, and you'll kind of maybe not quite get your needle directly in the hole, maybe a tiny bit to the side, so it pushes the next stitch to the side, then you get a little sliver of, you know, fabric showing through behind. I mean, it's not a huge deal, definitely not a huge deal, but yeah, just as I said, it's just that much neater. And I've not got a single line doing the, I mean, I don't get any lines showing when I'm finished. Now I'm going to park this one here because it has to go down this hole, which is empty. So I need to do that stitch first and then continue the next row. So mark that one off. Oops. Then pick up the blue, and then I can do a lot more stitches underneath. So I'm not feathering because, simply because I'm not getting tension lines. If I was getting tension lines here, for instance, on this diagonal, because I did exactly the same on this diagonal where the moon is, I did not do a single feathered stitch. By that I mean not having it completely straight. And I absolutely do not see any tension lines at all. And I think the coverage is pretty good also. So fairly happy with this as it's going. Actually very, very happy. Trust me, I'm not usually this slow, in case you're thinking. Now, sometimes you'll have no choice but to, or maybe it's actually better to come up a hole that's already been used with a stitch because you might have a stitch down here and your thread is over here and you think, well, I might as well just do that one stitch because if not, I have to get a new thread. So you have to weigh the option between, is it worth it or is it not? And often I just do it because the one stitch or two stitch isn't really going to make a huge amount of difference. I'm just trying to be a little bit consistent. I think once you get into the rhythm of this, it tends to be quite easy. We've got 3 stitches here. So yeah, at the moment I've just got a thing for, when I started this chart, I definitely wanted to just do it as neat as I could in a very consistent way. And I find this very relaxing, very consistent. So generally when I'm stitching like this, I just sit and watch TV. I'm going along in my rows, making progress every day. It probably takes me, you know, at the moment, because I'm just doing the 2 colors, this is going to be the quickest amount, the most amount of stitches I can do in an hour, say, because I'm just not changing threads. Well, 2 threads, that's it. But there's no confetti, there's no ninja stitches, so it's going to be really quick. But further down, when I got into the buildings, I could have spent an hour just doing 3 rows, because there were so many colours in it. What have I done? I don't think I've marked some stitches off again. I'm on the blue. No. That's black, 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 black. Yeah, and then there's blue here. What am I talking about? See, I start talking, I lose my train of where I'm going. Ah, okay. So what I did was I switched my Pattern Keeper highlights to the black instead of the blue, and I got confused. It's the blue ones I'm doing. But these colours are so close, in such a close match, it's easy to get confused and think you're doing the black when you're actually not doing the black. What was I just saying about it being relaxing and easy? And then suddenly I get lost. See, now here I'm actually doing these stitches because I'm going down a stitch that's already been done. So I can do that kind of, sometimes I've gone down like quite far like that in one diagonal single stitch line. And I think I can actually do that along this whole row, because the stitches I'm doing on this row are not going down any vacant holes. So that's 3. I hope this is clear and not as clear as mud. And I can go down this one. Then I've got 2 more. Then I come along with the black again. It's that easy. This is like easy stitching, isn't it, really? As long as you remember which colour you've got. Okay, now I must take a sip of my coffee before it gets cold. I really don't like cold coffee, to be honest. And now I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 stitches I can do in black to complete those rows. So I'm just going to grab my drink. And hope that my nose clears up. It's been driving me a bit bananas for a few weeks. And I feel so much better in myself. I just feel like my nose and my, gravelly voice is taking a bit longer to clear off. And I've got allergies. I do have allergies. I don't know what they are, apparently, because I've been down to the doctors many times, and I've even been up to the hospital and I've had allergy tests, and they've said, no, you're not allergic to anything, but you do have an allergy. And I'm like, well, what's that supposed to mean? Oh, you must be allergic to something because you're getting, symptoms. And it often happens. Well, actually, I probably have got a bit of hay fever or something, but I often feel it this time of year. So, yeah, when sort of spring is about to arrive and new things are growing, and probably my cat hair that's everywhere as well. It's driving my nose a bit nuts. And I'm also very sensitive to pressure changes in the air. So if the pressure changes in the air happens, I start to get blocked nose, or I feel like I'm underwater sometimes. But yeah, it will go. It always does. It just takes a bit longer after I've had a cold. Right, I've got 1 more stitch down here as well, and I can do that one because I can do that one because I said so. Now bear in mind that this is not the only way to stitch diagonal. I'm not preaching. I'm not telling everybody this is the correct way or this is the way you should do it. This is just the way I am doing it. And some of you will hate it for sure. but that's okay. You can perfectly hate it. It's just one way, like there's dozens of other ways to do everything. I'm certainly not going to say it's the best way or that it's even something that's original, because probably other people are doing, or somebody out there is doing the same thing, more than likely. So I'm just sort of just showing you for the fun, because you might want to try it yourself. And it's always fun when people say to me that when they see me doing something like this, they immediately want to do it, but they know that it's not the sort of method that they like. They kind of just get enabled, and then they get not enabled after a very short period of stitching, because they kind of know it's not going to work. But it's like, well, it looks so good when I see you doing it, but now I've gone and done it myself. You know, the buzz has passed. It's like, not that interested any longer. I just had to go and do a little bit. That's quite amusing. And that's happened to me before. I've watched somebody doing something and I've said, oh my God, I really want to do that. It looks so great. Let me go and do the same thing. And I kind of know deep inside it's not going to work. Not for long. It's not something I want to keep up. I just kind of want to do it in the moment, so to speak. Getting short on the... I want to get to an end of a thread so I can show you again how pitifully I end my threads. Well, I can see the sun is shining. As I look up in my office, I have a, what do you call those things? Skylight. Yeah, skylight above me on the ceiling. And it's where all the seagulls sit during the summer. And I'm not going to go into the whole funny story business now, because I did a lot of that in the last video. But we have this skylight, and there's always seagulls, like the certain time of year when they migrate or whatever, they come and they sit and they peer down at you sideways, because you know they've got their eyes on the sides of their head. And they peer down at you at an angle, like they're really curious and interested in what you're doing. And they look down into the office, and they can probably looking at the printer and going, oh my God, what's that? And then they're looking at my desk and my laptop, and they're saying, God, what's that? Probably looking at me and saying, what the hell is that? And I just find it so amusing. And we name them because my husband also works in this same office. So we've both got a desk, both got our own desks, and it just works out fine. Except that he's noisy because he's always on calls talking to colleagues, and I have to listen to all this yak, 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 yak. And I find it quite, disturbing. But he's not here all the time because he goes into an office sporadically. And that is why I'm basically stitching in here now, because he is at work somewhere else. And yeah, so I'm diverting from what I wanted to say originally. Anyway, the seagulls are looking down, and we name them because we find it amusing. And we've actually been able, just from them standing onto the little pane of glass that we have above us, we've been able to identify a couple of them because they've got distinguishable features. And there's one that was had like a hole or something. You know how they've got like flat feet, like orange flat feet, kind of like that. And they kind of sort of stand right on the glass. You can see underneath their feet. Well, this one poor guy had a hole. I don't know why he had a hole. It's like somebody must have shot him when he was lying down or something. I don't know. He had a hole in his foot. So we called him Hector. I don't know. That was his name. And then there was another one that stood on the roof, and I called him Lionel. I don't know why I called him Lionel, but that was his name. So we just sit here and look up to see whether it was Hector or Lionel that was looking down at us. And the cat used to just go mental when she saw these, when she saw Lionel or Hector standing on the skylight. She'd go nuts. She'd just stare up like for hours. She wouldn't do anything now, but she'd get super excited. She can't get up there because there's no way she's going to climb. The ceiling is like 12 feet high or 13 feet high. It's pretty tall ceilings. So even I could not touch it. I'd have to get, even if I got onto a ladder and walked up to the top of the ladder, I could not touch that pane of glass or reach it. So it's really difficult to clean. You kind of have to get onto the roof, which I'm not going to get onto. And we've had to have somebody get onto the roof to kind of fix it and stuff when it needed fixing. If I got lost again, I don't know what colour I'm using now, am I? Oh, yeah, I'm still on the blue. So yeah, the cat loves seeing the seagulls. It gives us something interesting to see and to stare at. And when you see this, they do this kind of stare off. The cat, she climbs up to the back of my husband's chair. He's got one of those like gaming chair things, or well, it's like more like an executive chair, he calls it. So the cat climbs onto the top of the chair and stares up at this seagull, and the seagull stares down at the cat, and it's like a real stare off. And the two of them, like for ages, just which one's going to give in first? I'll tell you, the cat always wins every time. The birds don't have that ability to just stare at something for hours, but the cat will do. She will stare at that thing and stay there all day if necessary. Until her eyeballs pop out, she will stare at the seagull. Anyway, so my friends, I didn't see Lionel last year in the summer. I saw him the year before, but last year he wasn't there. He's probably passed away, I'd say. I don't think it was to do with was that Hector? Hector had the hole in his foot. Don't think that was to do with his demise, but possibly. So there's the little seagull story. And the other thing, just to add to that story that makes me laugh, is my son, my teenage son, has one of these Nerf guns. And sometimes he'd come in and he'd shoot up with the foam, you know, the foam pellets. I mean, they're like harmless things. So he found it really amusing to shoot them up, to try and get to shoot the seagulls with the foam pellets. Seagulls didn't care less, to be honest. I mean, the foam pellets just bounce off the glass. I think they literally found it amusing more than anything else. Okay, I have to stop there because I want to do that stitch first. You see what I mean? I don't want to go down till I've done that stitch. I know it sounds a little bit prissy to do it like this. It probably is. But I don't care. I'm just like trying to follow a rule because I think it looks a bit neater. And you know, I'm going to get that odd day where I'm in that I really don't give a toss mood. And I'm just going to go like crazy, going down with all the one colour. Oh, look, here's an example. I've got black stitches here. I've got 3 in a row that I can do because they're all diagonal. 1, 2, 3. You see? Now that's going to be neat because I've gone down all the same holes. And I will park it just there. It's actually quite fun to do it like this because it gives you something interesting to think about. You have to think about where can I go down and where can I not go down. So it's kind of like a game, if you want it to be a game. So hopefully the point of it is not lost on you. it's just another way, like any other way. Like it's the same as when people decide to just do all of one colour and then they go back and they do all of another colour. It's just a way that they've devised that they fancy doing. It's not because doing one colour is going to make any huge difference to not doing it that way. I don't think it's going to make a huge difference whether you do whole of one colour or whether you change colours. It's just people doing what they prefer and what they like. Now, I don't know if this is going to be the way I'm going for the whole chart. That is quite difficult to say because it's a big chart and who knows what's going to happen next week or next month. I might get so sick of this diagonal business that I might end up going and doing some cross country. I rather hope not, because I'm liking how it's developing at the moment and I'm not at all bored of it. But in the past, I have gotten bored of it. So I can't make any promises about what sort of method I will continue with. I'm now at 3.57% and I've done 12,000 stitches. So I think that's pretty good for a month. I think that's excellent for a month. I don't think I've ever done that many stitches in 4 weeks, but I think it's because I've done mostly very few colours. I think that's the point. Now my coffee is not hot any longer. Okay, how much thread have I got left of this blue one? Surprised I haven't got confused here because they're both so dark. It is difficult. Not trying to play thread chicken, is that what you call it? But I am trying to not waste too much thread. I can be a little bit wasteful sometimes. I don't think I'm going to get to the end of this row with this one. Having said that, I've done it before. Now, come on, girl. Maybe you can. The worst thing is you try to get to the end and then the needle comes off and then it's just a kerfuffle. I can hear seagulls. They haven't landed on the roof. They haven't landed on the skylight yet, but they will do soon. Oh, I did it. Look, I managed it. I managed to get to the end. Can I do that last stitch? I think I can just about do that last stitch. There we are. Now, my ending method. Coming down as if I was going to park, but I'm not going to park. And I'm going to leave a little fluffy bit, tiny fluffy bit. Just there. That's it. Done. And then when I carry on stitching here, it's going to cover that at the back. And then sometimes, before I've even got down to there, it's disappeared. So it's been covered. I've never had a problem with that. If that was a problem for me, I wouldn't be doing it. But I've never had a problem with that. I think I've parked this one in the wrong place. Yeah, I have. I was supposed to park it one stitch up. How can you get parking wrong when you've only got 2 colours? That is me. No problem. Ah, that's because I have... Wait a minute. No. Okay, I've lost my marbles for a second. I haven't done that row. I've marked off that top row and I haven't done it. That is right. That is right. That one does go there. I have to get a new colour and do the row above. So let's go with a new strand. Oh, there goes an ambulance. That's something you get to hear in every city every day, unfortunately. See, now this thread was all wound over a bobbin, so look how it goes when you have it in a bobbin. It goes all kinky. which I'm not doing the bobbin winding stuff for a while now. I'm just putting all my threads into envelopes, and what I do is I wind them around my fingers. Wind them around my fingers like that. So that's how it looks in my envelope. I've got a little curl, a little circle of thread, and then I just unwind it, take another strand, wind it back again around my fingers, put it back in the envelope, and it stays really neat. There's no problems. And the threads never get tangled or anything, really, like that. Okay, so I had one day last week where I just could not thread I could not thread the needle at all. Just was not happening for me. I was getting so frustrated because normally I'm pretty fast with threading my needles, like I said. But that one day, it just was not happening. It took ages. The thread was like lanky. I kept trying and trying all different ways, and it was just a bad threading day. That's what I put it down to, because it doesn't happen all the time. In fact, it rarely happens, thank goodness. Because I would find that the most frustrating thing of all is faffing around trying to thread needle for ages. That just, for me, would drive me nuts. Now this row is all blue, and the one below, more or less, is also all blue. So look how nicely this diagonal is coming out. I hope I'm not just enabling you to do diagonals. If you really don't like diagonals, please de-enable yourself. I don't want to be blamed for someone doing something they don't like. Oh, that's too funny. Is that the right word? De-enable? What's the opposite of enable? Disenable? De-enable? I don't know. Usually my English is pretty good, but it's got worse in the last couple of years as I've got older. Not practicing as many words as I used to. When I was writing books, I used to look up different words just to get, something more interesting, a more interesting adjective or something. Now here we are. Can do all this row as well. There's something really nice about seeing this canvas slowly evolving, changing colour as you continue. My only gripe, I think, with doing long diagonal like this, like the way I'm doing it, is you don't really have anywhere else to go to get away from a certain area, because you're not going to just, like, say for instance this is all confetti for a couple of columns and then you've got a nice patch again. You can't just sort of skip down to here and just continue with the nice patch with the easy colours, because it wouldn't look right, I think. What you can do, I guess, is you can do shorter diagonals. For instance, I could end this diagonal here, maybe start one on the page at the bottom, get them all to match up eventually. At the moment, I'm kind of liking doing the whole diagonal going down. And this is the end. Now when I start the next diagonal, there's going to be no point. It's going to end at that line because that's the end of the page. And this is another thing that has I've been thinking about, because even though I like the idea of ending the diagonal down this line so that when I'm finished with the diagonals, I'll just have 2 full pages, or 4 as I'm doing, because I'm also doing diagonal on the 2 below. I don't want to get a line. Now, I did start with a page on this side. I don't think you can see. I actually started the diagonal here. It was like that. That was the edge. So that's really all I've done in diagonal up here, because I did a block. So this part where this line is was the edge. Can you see a line? Because I don't see a line. That means that I'm okay to do another line here, to end here, and not continue diagonaling over this side. That means I should be okay. You won't see an edge. And that was a hard line as well. I did not go over. I did not even carry threads. So what do you think, guys? Do you think, if you can't see any line here, which I don't think I can, if I'm diagonaling up to this line, I don't really want to feather out to the next bit. I just don't really want to do that. So I think I'm just going to end that line there of diagonals. If I really did see a tension line or something there, I would not do it. But if I look hard enough, I will invent a line in my brain sometimes. And that's really annoying because there isn't one, but I just see one because I'm looking so hard. I can see the row of stitches down that line. But if I just was looking at this up on the wall and you said to me, where did I finish stitching along this section vertically, I'd have no idea. I'd be like, I can't see anything. So there you go. There's the answer, I think. I think I've just answered that question myself, I think. But do tell me what you think. Because I know some of you that do diagonals will do different ways. See, my reasoning, I think, for doing the 2 pages here and the 2 pages below is because I want to do a whole vertical section rather than go horizontally, so that I can get to be doing the buildings and the rocks at the bottom and all that stuff as well. I don't just want to keep going that way. And also, by doing it like this, sticking to the 4 pages, like in a big square, I will be making use of my area that I'm working in on my nerge. So I don't have to take the fabric off my nerge and move it, you know, before doing. I could even maybe go up a bit further than 2 pages, but that would make my diagonal so long it will go off the end, go off the bottom of the nerge. So here is about right, 2 full pages. And I think it would look okay. Then I can move it and do another 4 pages. Pages are pretty small in this one. Now I'm just going to park that one here. Go back to the black for a second. Oh, this is such relaxing stitching, isn't it? And I haven't had a single interruption. I'm very surprised because I've shut the door and normally the cat tries to bulldoze her way in. Now the latch on my door here isn't very good, so it doesn't shut properly, and I'm not going to lock it because I don't want her to feel like she's locked out or anything. Like, she can come in if she wants to, as long as she behaves. But normally she likes to be in the same room as me. No matter what I do, she follows me. So if I'm in the bedroom, she'll come into the bedroom. If I'm sitting on the bed reading, she'll come in and lie beside me. And then if I go into the lounge and I sit in the lounge, she'll come in and sit maybe on the couch beside me, or she'll go into her tower. And if I'm in the office, she'll come in and sit on my husband's chair, or she's got like a little bed in here as well. So she likes to be in the same room that I am in. And I think many cats are like that. They just like the company. She doesn't necessarily want me to pay attention to her or to pet her or anything. She just wants to be in the same room. So I don't mind when she comes in here. because normally she'll just come in. But she does tend to bulldoze her way in. She kind of like kicks her head on the door and pushes it open. She's not very dainty about doing that. The door smacks against the wall. She comes in. And she comes in with attitude, like, here I am. But she hasn't this time, so she must be really tired because she's probably sleeping somewhere else and hasn't even bothered to follow me. At other times she's come in and made a complete awful maniac of herself. And by that I mean she jumped onto my husband's computer desk, jumped all over his monitors and his keyboard, tried to scratch things and push them off his desk. And I'm thinking, my goodness, I'm pretty glad he's not around because he'd be going mad. and generally being a nuisance. But normally she's okay. She's good. She's a good cat. She's an affectionate, good cat. She likes a little bit of play. She's not as playful as she used to be. She's only 1 year old, or no, she must be more than that. She's about 1.5 years old. So she's still young. But she grew out of being, she was like really, really playful, and then she just couldn't be bothered. She got lazy. She plays a little bit, but it takes a lot to get her worked up. She doesn't get stimulated that quickly. She's like, I can't be bothered. And then if you keep at her, she will play, but it takes ages to get her stimulated about it. And we've got all sorts of toys for her, and she's very fussy about which ones she wants at which time of day. And mostly it's what she likes the best is getting onto the bed and you putting your hand under the cover or something, and she just tries to attack it. She loves that one the best. Okay, I think I've done pretty good here, and time is really going ahead. It's flying by. But I think I can more or less achieve an hour. This is about an hour's stitching session, which I think is about right, isn't it really? I mean, if you have the time to do an hour, why not do an hour? And I hope it hasn't been dull or anything. I know I can get into chat mode pretty easily. Doesn't take me long to get into chat mode. Now I think that does look very neat, if I may say so. And just down here on the next column or block, I will be doing the third colour will be introduced here. Then it's sort of getting a gradient going down. I really loved the way that little moon popped out. It was nice for that little moon to pop out in the middle of the black and the blue. I think with these things you have to be very patient. You just kind of have to have a patient character. It is very subtle, the blue and the black here, but I think you can see it makes a difference. It's all black over on this side. There's no variation, and the blues all started coming in around the moon. Here is a even lighter ones, and I think it really does make a difference, especially when you shine a bit more light on it. You really can appreciate those tones, so it's not a waste of time using two dark colours like that. Although I have to say, in something like that, if I did a stitch wrong, I'm not really going to worry about it. I'm not going to try and unpick it or anything, because, I mean, really, would you be able to say, Oh, there's a stitch wrong there. There's a blue one instead of a black one. I don't think so. So that's the end of the black thread here. Now I'm going to do the same as I did before. I'm going to go a bit further down the stitching area, like here, because I'm going to be wanting to stitch behind that. And I'm going to leave a tiny bit there. There we are. Now, most of the rest of this is blue up to the bottom of that block. So that's just easy stitching. I think that's been more or less, apart from it being one complete colour, that's the second easiest block of stitching I've ever done, I think. I know it's going to get more intense when we get into the details, but hey, that's always the way. You don't want to be doing this bit forever. You don't want to just be doing this monotonous 2 colours forever. That would be boring. Goodness me, it's coming up to midday already. How time flies. I can't believe how quickly February has disappeared. Not just because it's a short month. Oh, and happy Leap Day, by the way. I nearly forgot to say. Are you doing anything particularly exciting today? You won't be seeing me this day next year for sure. I won't be around on this day next year. I just can't believe how quickly February has disappeared. Sometimes time goes so quickly that the days just all roll into one blur. Like, I can't remember the week before last what I did very much. Probably a lot of stitching, but I can't remember specific details. And yeah, just like life just keeps rolling forward. On and on and on and on. It just doesn't stop until it stops, but it just keeps rolling forward. This is, how many stitches have I done? 150. That's not bad. 150 since we started. That's pretty good. Don't think I'd ever have done that many in a stitching session. I think I average about 20 stitches on a stitch with me. Often because I talk so much, sometimes I forget to stitch. And there will always come a time when you run out of things to say. That goes without saying. You just do. You just run out of things to say. Oh, do not get tangled up. I have to say, it's been good. It's been a good session today for not getting tangled up. Normally I get a fair few knots here and there. So far, so good. Okay, I have reached not quite the end of the second block, but I have done a really good amount and I'm pretty pleased with that. And I think it's time to go and get some lunch or something, because I did not have any breakfast. There we have it. My new diagonal on Happy Village. I'll just continue going down. Let me just pull it back a little bit for you to see the whole thing. I'll continue going down until I get to the bottom. Some more of this building came out. I did a little bit of this yesterday. There you can see it right down to the bottom. So I'm going to go all the way down and then I'm going to go back up and do another diagonal, and I'm going to go down that edge and see how we go. I think with a lack of tension lines or any kind of problem like that, I think we are safe. We are safe because I know some people have been getting tension lines with diagnosed, and I just wanted to make sure that wasn't happening. So there we go, my friends. Thank you for joining me today. It's been a pleasure, as always. I hope I haven't bored you to tears. Apologise if I have. But I've tried. I have tried to spend some time with you as well. So, yeah. Oh, I want to say that there is a link in my description. Somebody asked me if they could buy me a coffee, and I said, sure. I have got the Ko-Fi app on my link on my videos, but sometimes I forget to put the link in, but I'm going to put the link in today. It's not necessary, but it is nice to get a little coffee every now and again from people. It does kind of make you feel that things are appreciated and deserved. But as I said, it isn't necessary. But anyway, my link is there. So with that, I just want to wish you a happy weekend now, coming up to Friday tomorrow. I hope you have a lovely weekend and enjoyed the session today. I will be back again soon. So have a great weekend, guys. Take care of yourselves and have fun. And I'll see you again. Bye.